Okay, there we go. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the BTS Pro Series 10 Americas. We are moving along to the second game here of our grand final. Thunder Awaken going up against Four Zoomers once again. Game one of this series proved to be maybe not overly competitive. Thunder Awaken just kind of came out and dominated their opponents to take the opening match. Now, looking to really just put themselves in complete control with a second straight win. That 2-0 lead, not impossible to come back from, but unbelievably difficult. So Thunder Awaken would very much like to have that level of control. Four Zoomers, meanwhile, fighting to get this back to a tie score at 1-1. As we do jump into that Game 2 draft, I'm joined as always by ET, and ET for Zoomers with the first pick. Just going to go after that Tiny.
Yeah, and it's very interesting to actually see, as we are very aware after getting the lobby situated, that Zoomers are choosing first pick here. I wonder if that same value is going to be spread across the board because this first pick Tiny is proving itself to be, well, first pick Tiny. It's incredible what these teams are actually able to do with the hero. And Zoomers, of course, the team that have ran it in the off lane both times before, we'll have to see if we see that same answer. In the meantime, though, no Ember Spirit. They switched it up with the Undying. And we've seen how strong this Undying is, not only versus the Tiny, but also versus the Templar Assassin. I think that's where Four Zoomers wanted to. They can't look back anymore. They have to go forward now. I would love if they picked up a hero that's going to actually allow them to either kill the Tombstone or navigate around it. I think probably the easiest hero I could call here would just be immediately slamming maybe the Mirana down for Z-Freak, just having some immediate kind of impact. But they take the Ember Spirit themselves. Okay, that's fairly interesting. But at the same time, now it's going to be very interesting to see how Thunder Awaken deal with the Tiny, because that is where the focus of these drafts really does lie.
And, well, we'll see where they look and what they try to do with this Snapfire. We have seen Sacred on it quite a few times in that offlane position, but simply run it at the 4 with Matthew, and then beyond that point, we'll see what they look core-wise to try and deal with the Tiny, because in the past, we've seen the Tiny pick up. Teams have kind of tried to run something like the Timber Saw against it, and we have not really seen the Timber today at all, ET, but it's been in the pool pretty much every time.
Yeah, and I feel like maybe we got a little bit of an illusion towards that, where maybe even Four Zoomers don't feel like that hero is quite as strong as maybe that kind of looks at surface level. It certainly feels great versus the Tiny, but you remove a playmaker from the field. You are purely damaged at that point, and I think that's where a lot of these mid laners, I'm positive that both Dark Mago and Gunner can play that active style, but it feels like a lot of the times now the control is coming from your offlaner, the damage is more or less coming from your mid laner, and even better, your mid laner is becoming more of that true core, more of that carry. We're seeing a lot less rotation coming from the mid lane. Usually it's everybody else flooding in mid is more likely to see, and I think that's where the Timber Saw becomes a little bit of a gamble. It feels great. I think both of these offlaners are fantastic at it. I mean, we have Moo and Sacred. The building is filled with Timber Saw pickers, but it's also where you remove that easy play. You don't have that Mars. You don't have that easy sort of just get level 6, run around, get a Blink Dagger. It's why the Sand King, I think, became so popular, is just because you have that mix of initiation and magic damage burst. And even though we certainly feel the drawbacks of that hero, I think that's exactly what an offlaner needs to be in this patch.
Okay. In the meantime, that is an interesting ban here from Thunder Awaken, keeping with the theme of sort of focusing in on those supports. They take the Keeper of the Light away, which not a lot of teams are really emphasizing much anymore, but if this is going to be maybe some sort of core Ember play that they're suspecting, then Kano does really make your life easier with that Chakra magic. So a little bit of a strange ban to see, but, you know, the meta shifts in this sort of best of 5 format. Normally not this early, but Thunder Awaken are not willing to get caught out by one of those surprise picks.
Yeah, and well, scratching the head a little bit here. Kunkka's still in the pool. Dark Mago's still in the game. If they want to, we could see them immediately turn around for that. We actually haven't gotten to see what I want to say is the Kunkka versus Tiny matchup. A lot of the times, it feels like those two have never really conflicted against each other. Usually, that those hero combos or those hero opposing combos don't really happen. But okay,
All right.
it's available to them. They'll take it. But now we do need to fill that gap. Thunder Awaken need to find that balance. Sacred is going to be an absolute monster on the hero, but if there's not someone to be with him, especially in Dark Mago, then you're going to have a little bit of a problem here. And I almost think they pick up the Timbersaw right now, saying, hey, for Zoomers, if you don't pick the Kunkka, well, now we have Timbersaw and we have Kunkka, and you're going to have damage problems, and we're happy playing versus the Tiny. I think for Zoomers now, they need to think about that hero. Don't think they can steal that hero, because the problem lies where, are you going to pick Kunkka versus Timbersaw? Of course you're not. So now what do four Zoomers do? They need to find a solution to, I think, both of Thunder Awaken's heroes. They're really threatening a lot here with this Timber pick.
It's what Thunder Awaken do so often, ET, right? They put you in a position where you get to choose between two options, neither of which are really fantastic for you. You're just picking the lesser of two evils. So see what four Zoomers look to do here. I suppose if they really can't come up with an immediate solution, they could kick the can down the road and just focus in on their support duo right now. They'll at least start with the Skywrath Mage. Not a bad pick. We saw Z-Freak on that in their previous series. The Skywrath was incredibly useful, but it was useful in the context of laning with and constantly following a Mars that is not going to be happening in this lineup. So now, the damage is still great, but the setup for the Mystic Flare may not be there.
Yeah, and they did do the same combo with Mu in the Tiny, but it feels a little bit more loose. It feels like you're not exactly able to protect the Scarf as much, and I think that's where you need to be very concerned for Z-Freak's status in this game, because with the Mars Arena, well, you've got a huge spell blocking you away from that Scarf Mage. With the Tiny combo, if you don't kill that hero instantly, well, they look for revenge, and I think that's where there's not that same level of protection coming in from the Scarf Mage, which makes the combo feel a little bit weaker, but I think that's also where Zoomers didn't really have too many better options. Now they're scrambling for a pick for, I think, Husky, just figuring out what he wants to play. Can't pick Ogre, unfortunately. And they will go for his Disruptor, something he's done in pretty much the entire tournament, but very squishy support duo. Very, very squishy.
Yeah, that is always the downside. Husky can do a lot for you. On the Disruptor, Z-Freak on the Skywrath can be useful, but if anybody gets that back line and just lays a finger on you, those supports are going to blow up. And Thunder Awaken even already have a lineup that can do that. The Timbersaw still very mobile with the chain. The Snapfire with the kisses could start laying those hits in if they don't need that damage to focus directly on the cores. So it's going to be a struggle for four Zoomers, and we haven't even really seen anything along the lines of a Pakaz or Dark Mago hero. So it could get worse for them at this point. But
yeah,
Thunder Awaken, what do you want to do? Do you really just grab the Kunkka here? I mean, it's been screaming at them really throughout the entirety of this draft, still unbanned, and I mean, at this point it feels like it would go incredibly well for them, especially now with the Disruptor on the other side. Your X-Play can maybe break up some of that glimpse, some of that glimpse initiation, and they are just going to go straight in for it.
Yeah, it's super simple. I think Thunder Awaken, unfortunately for four Zoomers, have their opponents kind of right where they want them, and I think now they still need to pick up a Pakaz hero. They still need to pick something, keeping in mind that this is probably going to be a Tiny falling into the hands of Mu, not necessarily going to be a Costabila hero, because, well, we've seen the Tiny versus Timber matchup, and it's not impossible, but it's where you're forced to look for that Silver Edge, you're forced to look for that later item timing, and unfortunately, sometimes it's just not enough for you. But I think that's also where, because what do you want to play here? I was going to mention, if they don't pick the Kunkka, I would love to see them pick a hero like the Jug, if anything, for just having that healing ward and having a huge problem in these fights. And something that I think Thunder Awaken could do is almost a four Zoomer strategy, where they try to just get as many things combined up with this Undying, where the team fight becomes so large scale and so impossible for you to fight in that suddenly you can't fight. I also love the Bloodseeker band here. I love that they're covering this Timbersaw just a little bit more. I certainly think that Costabile isn't always looking for the Bloodseeker. It's not like that's his hero. He only played it, I think, once or twice in the entire tournament, but it's where you have that little bit of lockdown for the Timbersaw. You force him to sit out of the fight and whittle down those reactive armor stacks, and I think stylistically, it also would play very nicely with four Zoomers lineup as they currently stand, but that's also where, do you decide to go for a strength carry, or are you forced into an Agi pickup? It's where this Timbersaw, you constantly feel the pressure he exudes onto a draft, and I don't think they're going to put Costabile on that Tiny, but honestly, what else are you going to pick here? Because it's got to be something that's going to build a Silver Edge, but unfortunately, they ban out their own PA that they could have gone for, just have the break inherent in that hero, but unfortunately, it feels like four Zoomers might be in a corner already.
And Well, I mean, you could swing the Tiny to the 1. You were mentioning before that not really thinking that they could do that, but they may not have too many other choices, because as you said, they need a carry who fills a very specific role, and right now the Tiny is already in the lineup and can be that sort of Silver Edge purchaser, but then what do they get for
Uno.
Moo? Okay. The Ursa for Costabile, that's honestly, it's not a bad pick. Doesn't quite tick all the boxes they need for them, but there wasn't really a pick left that was going to give you everything that you need. You just kind of have to settle for as many as you can. So you've got damage, you've got some durability, hard hero to keep locked down, so I think that's probably the best four Zoomers would have been able to do in that situation.
Yeah. The only problem that I kind of have for them is what happens if the CK gets picked now for Pakaz? I feel like that's where we might see the draft end up. And I think the Ursa, like you said, is a solution. It's something that is going to be able to lane versus the Timbersaw. It's something that's going to be able to keep the stacks up on Kunkka. Plays very well versus the Kunkka, to be honest, just because you do really get that damage regardless on whether or not that Rum is out there. And there is a very tight timing here where the Scarth Mage can TP to the Ursa's lane, get the kill, move on, hopefully before the Timbersaw hits level 6, because past that, Sacred never really skips a beat, but I'm just worried. And Troll? Okay. Hey, that's a killable hero. I am less down for that hero in comparison to the CK, but
Hmm.
we'll see what Pakaz is actually able to do here. But honestly, maybe there's a little bit of an opening now. That's a killable carry. That's someone that we can take down in the side lanes. Now, his friends, they're very beefy. They're very tanky. They're a little bit more of a problem. But at the very least for four Zoomers, don't want to back them into too much of a corner just yet. But we've got our Gunner Ember Spirit. We've got our big playmaker. We've got him on an incredibly active hero. Now we just need to fuel him in those side lanes. And I think him winning those side lanes is going to be an incredibly important part of the early game for four Zoomers. Not to mention, the better your early game goes, the more likely Costabile is able to sneak that Roche, the more likely I think they can probably get that snowball going.
Hmm. And yeah, what a difference sort of one pick makes. Because is still going to be terrifying on this troll, but as you said, that's killable. There are ways to fight around this troll and his ult and his BKB, whereas the Chaos Knight, well, obviously not unbeatable as well, but it feels like there were fewer vulnerabilities with that in the lineup compared to the Troll Warlord. But who knows? Four Zoomers will still have to find those openings and take advantage of it against a Thunder Awaken lineup that very rarely gives you those sorts of chances. So, at the end of the day, as we always say, it's still going to come down to execution. But if you're four Zoomers, maybe you have a little bit more hope coming into Game 2 than you would have with a different last pick.
Yeah, and of course, not out of the dark. They need to execute versus these strength heroes, something that really no team has handled all too well. It always feels like the team that has that surplus HP pool to work with just winds up winning regardless. And I think that's where you can certainly get through it with the Fury swipes, but you also need to inherently take a pretty long engagement for four Zoomers to make this count. And I think that's also where the protection of the supports is going to be crucial. Whether or not Moo can get himself ahead of the rest of his teammates, if they can swing this offlane Tiny and maybe prove that this strategy is not only their own, but the right choice in a lot of these situations, then I can certainly see four Zoomers getting something here. But it's also where half the lineup wants to take it slow, half the lineup wants to take it instantly. You need to find an immediate pick with the Tiny and the Skywrath, and then set yourself up to position to allow your Ursa to actually hit heroes. It's one of those unfortunate cases where once the Ursa goes in, he has to stagger with the Tiny, because Tiny will toss you if you're too close in the fight, and you never want that to spell out.
Yeah, what are these wards? Wow. They drop one in between the tier 1 and the tier 2 mid. The other down bot is uh basically between the tier 2 and the tier 3. Listen, we have seen maybe one of those wards get thrown down before, but both of them from one team is a little bit out of the ordinary.
Yeah, courier sniping? Question mark, but there's no boots built up on Z-Freak, and because he's playing Skywrath, really, so we'll have to see. But it is an interesting start. Maybe they were just hoping to see a carry walking lazily down to the bottom lane, so that way they could just hit him up as they started one of their previous games, but it's a little bit of a strange way to start things out here. I do like this swap up though. Z-Freak's going top. He's going to be laning with the Ursa. You have the slow combined with the Ursa to put some more pressure on the Timbersaw. At the same time, Moo has Husky. He has that Thunderstrike harass. It'll feel like Pakaz is maybe put underneath a little bit more pressure just with the magic new.
Mhm. And putting the Skyroth up in the top lane not only gives you the slow, but it gives you magic damage against a Timber Saw, so you can be a little bit more annoying. But, well, speaking of annoying, yeah, Panda's going to do Panda things. You've got an Undying against not a dual strength off lane, but one hero, at least in the Tiny, who is not going to appreciate getting those stats taken away. So, not going to be a fun lane for Moo here if Panda has his way, and we're doing a pretty substantial amount of damage. Moo, you went for this build again, ET. Wraithband Tango. That means, though, Husky may have to hand over some of his regen to his carry, or excuse me, not his carry, to his offlaner.
Yeah, and well, Husky's used to that. He's right at home when it comes to applying that regen to his ally. Nice deny there, but yeah, Pop the dive in. It was just the level 2. Sacred's playing so aggressive. He has both the Whirling Death and the Timber Chain, and completely caught Costabile off guard.
Caught me off guard. I was nowhere close to that. Sorry for the bad camera, but that's not supposed to be really possible. But I guess with the aggressive build-up, yeah, they made it happen. Quick first blood for Thunder Awaken, and they're looking for more. They get the cookie onto Z-Freak. The body blocks are going to come in. There's no way out. They'll find a second kill. This is just aggression on a level that is not supposed to be possible 2 minutes in. They found 2 kills now. Sacred still doesn't have a point in the reactive, and Gustavo, you need to be a little bit careful. Matthew could pop the mango, try to turn around for another fight, but if he does that, your Timber doesn't really have enough mana to work with himself. So at least on that front, the Ursa will be safe, but this is a terrible start to this lane. And now, what is going on down bot? Okay, because gonna get pressured up. They will bring that other support over, and it will be enough to get some revenge. So, well, nice bailout. Top, not going great. Bring Z-Freak over. They'll send Husky up top instead. And you're not going to be able to undo those kills, so you might as well just try and get yourself a better laning setup.
Yeah, but at the same time, they keep making this play, and Sacred has to be careful here, but it's so much harass traded out. I think with the body box from Husky, very possibly they get the kill, but it might need to come from that second Thunderstrike, and well, unfortunately for Husky, it's already got canceled. There's no more mana.
Just got to back away, maybe get 1 or 2 more right clicks in, but not going to be able to do much more than that. Now Sacred gets healed up. Matthew hits him with the salve, and Matthew is now basically out of items. He's sitting on a headdress, and that's basically it, but his job in this lane has kind of already been done. Now the Soul Ring is up on Sacred, so mana issues are really not going to be issues for him over the next few minutes, so good look to keep that aggression going. Meanwhile, down in the bottom lane, well, I want to see now what Z-Freak can do. Up in the top lane, we talked about how annoying he could be trying to deal with Sacred. Now, it feels like a lot of your damage is just stuff that Panda can kind of just eat and absorb for the most part.
Yeah, and unfortunately, when you do have this Undying run at you, you don't have the, I want to say, opportunity to just get the concussive shot always onto the troll, even though that's a nice snipe out. No raindrops for you, so Bakaz is going to eat a little bit more magic damage, but it is a little bit more difficult when you don't have the selective spell, because the Thunderstrike was surely putting Bakaz on the back foot just a little bit more here, but that is the benefit of lane swapping. You give a lot more XP over to Moo. The Tiny gets to kind of stabilize in his own right, and as we talked about with the Tiny change, he has a lot of base damage. When it comes to contesting these last hits, it's very difficult for Bakaz, who's on a very low base damage hero, and I think that's where Moo is honestly starting to have a pretty good time here. Not to mention, yeah, top.
They cannot afford to lose the Ursa again here. They'll get the kill. Sacred, okay. Didn't hit with the chain. He's got stick charges, though, so he could try. Is he willing to go for it, though? At this point, I don't think so. Gustavo is going to be able to get away. He does still pop the charges, but not going to go chasing. Instead, he'll just look to get more damage onto Husky, but is Gustavo coming back in? Yeah, Sacred's got to be very careful. He'll just chain himself out, and looks like that's going to be a bit of a reset, but Zoomer's starting to get this lane in a slightly more stable situation, although as I say that, Husky is getting hit up here. Sacred, did he just pop the
bait?
Oh, hold on. Yep, he is going to get the kill. Gunner, though, he's got the Sleight of Fist. There we go. Going to be able to trade that one out. Matthew, though, once in, I don't think he can get anything here. Scatter Blast isn't going to be enough damage, and Gunner will simply TP away.
And really, even though Husky does go down there, he salvaged up his Ursa on the way back. He baits a kill into the Ember. That is a huge turn of events for them, at least in the early laning stage. But that went really well for Zoomers, actually.
And Now your Ursa sitting at 1-1-1, not really feeling quite as bad about some of that initial aggression. His last hit count is starting to catch up here a little bit as well. Maybe not compared to the Kunkka, but it's a Dark Mako Kunkka. You're probably not out farming him, but looking like a decent situation here. You always got to be very much sort of cautious, though, with the nuke damage coming in from this duo. It was a nice play to sort of get Kostabile into a recovery mode, but it could all just be sort of thrown away again if Matthew and Sacred find this kill again.
Yeah, it's a lot of salves. It's a lot of money that Husky has to spend. It's why he doesn't have boots, is because there really isn't the opportunity for him to get it. I want to see... Damn, Sacred has a third point up in the Timber Chain. He's just looking to be very aggressive. This isn't the tanky sit in between your towers Timber Saw. This is the I'm going to try and kill you and force levels out. It's the same build he went versus Kostabile whenever he was on that Monkey King, and it does do quite a lot here, and especially with Husky, who doesn't have boots, that you constantly have to be careful and has the stick, but again, Sacred's not very tanky.
Yeah, the durability is a big concern. You see him having to just sort of back out, try and reset, but he's got the chain into the whirling. Husky, well, I would say sort of watch your positioning, but there's really no angle Sacred's not going to be able to hit you from, so just a rough scenario. Gunnar, though's coming in with a DD rune, but nope. No point in the Searing Chains means no lockdown, means no kill. Sacred falls back to the tower. Matthew TP's home. And, well, now you've left the Kunkka alone in the middle lane a little bit. Dark Mako crosses the river to actually steal Gunnar's camp.
Yeah, and it's something that Dark Mako does so well. You see how far ahead he really is here. And of course, Gunnar's doing the exact same thing. He's trying to keep on par with Dark Mako, and with this ward, they will scout Dark Mako if he does want to go towards that bottom lane, but he's also queued up the Orchid. This Dark Mako Kunkka is looking to be very annoying, maybe force the early Yule Scepter out of the Ember Spirit. He's going to have to be very careful. Unfortunately for Dark Mako, though, he can't really come to the Ursa's lane. He's going to need to wait for Sacred to call that the Enrage is already on cooldown. Then we might see some rotation from the Kunkka. Other than that, though, it's really just going to be him trading farm with Gunnar and then battling for the runes. And it's a battle that Dark Mako can win more often than not, but it's also where you have to see the rotations from the supports, and they're actually chasing each other right now. I think Z-Freak might be dead, though.
Able to take him down. You do force out Panda's Tombstone. That's going to count for something in terms of the cooldown, but 8 minutes in, I don't think he's saving that Tombstone for any sort of major team fight play, so they let it fly in the jungle. They find themselves another kill, and, well, this is always the thing about... Oh, okay. About Thunder Awaken, they like to get those supports moving, like to really give Sacred the solo lane, but now with Dark Mako coming in, can they do this? There's going to be the X. They start off with a Tidebringer. There's going to be the Torrent, the Ghost Ship. Sacred's in for the damage, but the Enrage is not going to make this an easy kill. But I think they've still got it. Kostabile dropping low. Sacred gets glimpsed away, but it's Dark Mako that they had to be worried about. So Sacred will actually not get the kill. They split it between the two of them. Elsewhere on the map, Gunnar was able to make a move, get himself a kill onto Matthew, but you see the cost. They lose their Ursa again, and while it helps out Gunnar on a sort of personal level, it's not really going to be a worthwhile trade-off, especially if they lose this tower. Sacred is sticking around, but this is always the downside of offlane Timber. You don't hit towers, really, for anything.
No, you're going to need that card. We'll probably see the tower could very likely topple in at the 10-minute mark, but it's also where I think Husky just needs to be a little bit aware here. But again, in the mid lane, Matthew TP's in, trying to take the XP, and then gets punished by Gunnar and Z-Freak. And I think if you can start to slow down that here, look over at Gunnar. He's also getting an Orchid. Now, 1,000 net worth behind Dark Mako, but the closer they can get to each other, the more likely it is that we're going to see those early kills. Silences are hard to come by, but they're so important in this game. It's where Zoomer's already a little bit ahead of the curve.
Back up top, Sacred getting jumped in on. Tried to jump away initially. He's going to get glimpsed back into it. He's doing a lot of damage to these heroes, though, and yeah, they really don't want to chase, especially with Dark Mako now coming back in. The boat's back up, and he really just wants to go straight onto the Ursa, but that means he's kind of ignoring Gunnar, who just took down his teammate. Sacred did fall, and Dark Mako, I don't really know if you do this anymore. He still gets the kill, but now how does he get out? He is stuck inside of the kinetic field. Gunnar just trying to track him down. They'll get the glimpse out now, and Gunnar will secure it. So Dark Mako with a little bit of tunnel vision there. I think once he sees Gunnar, that should be your maybe cue to fall back, but if you're going to lay out, if you're going to die for the kill, as they do get the Ursa.
Yeah, and it is still a core trade, and one that I think 4 Zoomers are going to be pretty happy with, but that was also 5 heroes. They're rather 4 heroes. Moo still is not showing up. He's still going to go for his farm in the bottom lane, but that's what we're going to have to see. And Moo, have you gone a little bit too hard here? I think because actually wants to use his ulti, but that's where maybe they back off after seeing the Kustabile show up. Without the tombstone, they don't actually have enough damage here, but hey, you got something forced out of you. Kustabile gets to reestablish himself on the map.
They're bringing everything. 2 more heroes walking down. Husky just TP'd in, so they're going to try to take a fight, but there isn't one to be had because TP's away very wisely, and Panda unfortunately TP'd in, so he can't leave, but if he can buy time from 5 heroes here, this is going to be a pretty massive play from him. He will eventually go down, but 5 heroes into the bottom lane. Maybe they can get the tower off the back of this too, but that is a hefty commitment.
No, it certainly is very expensive, and where is the card? I think the card actually already died, so they will have to wait a little bit when it comes to taking this tower, but it's a good trade, and Gunner, uh-oh. He has a remnant, but he's been X'd.
Dodged it out. Matthew, though, with the kisses is still doing some nice damage, but can they really catch? We got the X back up in 8 seconds, but it feels like by that point, yeah, Gunner's just going to be able to get away. So, oh, does a little bit of dancing in the middle lane, avoids the gank. His teammates took the tower down bot, and 4 Zoomers, well, already starting to recover. Kustabile on the Ursa, 1 and 3 is not ideal, but now he's got space. He shifts bot, and Thunder Awaken could still try to come pressure him, but in the short term, nobody is making that move right now.
Well, and it's also the simple case of Kustabile having that diffusal blade to build towards. He's going to get active a little bit sooner. Still needs to find his moment to actually kill the Roche, as we always talk about how important that Aegis is for the Ursa, but it's also where you do wonder if Thunder Awaken are going to be the ones taking the fight to you or Sacred.
Oh,
And actually, Gunner, he's got the Remnant, but
can he time it out right? I would assume he can. Yep, okay. Dodges the X, dodges the cookie. Still hanging out here, though. But, as you said, he's got a Remnant to jump back to. He's just trying to really be as distracting as he can. Take some experience as well, maybe on the way. Sacred, he's trying to get a cutoff angle, but the problem is there is really no angle. He can just jump out to the Remnant whenever he wants, unless they can stun him or silence him. Yeah, that's going to happen. He just jumps away, and Thunder Awaken send about 4 heroes into that jungle to try and track him down, and they really don't get anything out of it.
yeah, honestly, a pretty big loss. And I think that's where the longer that Gunner can keep them away from his mid tower, the further they can stray away from those objectives, the more it's going to really heavily favor 4 Zoomers. And of course, as Moo has gone for in every single game, he's going for the Echo Saber first. He's prioritizing his own farm and damage maybe ahead of the usability of that Blank Dagger. And we'll have to see if it ends up paying off, because there is yet again another Battle Fury hero in the game that you are giving a lot of time to. And the Ursa, in going for the Diffusal Blade, sure, you're going to get active a little bit sooner, but you might not be able to keep up with the farm, and that's where because it's right where he wants you. And I think that's where we'll have to see. 4 Zoomers have a very good position right now, especially on the mid tower, but yeah, Moo wants to push. Unfortunately, that's where the Glyph is going to come out, and they have to be very careful here. Matthew has the kisses. If they want to really get this team fight going, Thunder Awaken can start, and I think Moo might be dead.
There's going to be the X into the boat, into the Torrent, into the kisses. They did drop the static down, though, onto Panda, so they'll get a return kill, but Dark Mago, he is holding his ground. He's going to go in, drops the X. Gunner, can he dodge this out? He needs the Sight of Fist at the right time, and he will be able to do it, so... Well, now, Dark Mago, are you a little bit too far forward? He's trying to back up here, but now with Sacred coming in, they have to be very careful. Gunner, you can't afford to go! And they'll bait him in. They'll hit him with the tip afterwards as well. And now they're going to be losing other heroes. Z-Freak taken out, but... I mean, you said, you know, what a treat, right? To see some of these... Excuse me, some of these players playing some of their signature heroes. Dark Mago there... That's 100% intentional. He just sort of lays out, knowing Sacred's coming in, knowing Gunner is not going to be able to resist trying to go for that quick kill. Sacred makes him pay for it. Dark Mago, though, might be in some trouble now. He does get glimpsed back. He tried to X himself, but he's dead before he gets the chance to actually activate it. And yeah, well, turnabout's fair play. You tip Gunner, you're going to get tipped yourself. And now Gunner is looking for a little bit of revenge, wants to jump in onto Panda. Sacred is here, though, so he is going to be taking a lot of damage. Matthew now trying to push forward as well. He has the cookie stun, but doesn't have the kisses, so they're actually going to try and back out of this, but they can't. Sacred going to get hit up, glimpse back in, Avalanche locks him down, and well, 4 Zoomers may have overextended on the first fight ET, but they will certainly win the second.
Yeah, and now right into the pit, and There is some nice vision getting dewarded right now as well, and I honestly think Thunder Awaken might just have to give this up. Because is already TPing away. This is only going to be the first stages, so it's not the end of the world for these heroes, but that's where for Zoomers, they look fantastic when they have this Disruptor in the hands of Husky. When they are constantly bringing back these heroes, they keep the ever fight going, and Husky, he has really been everywhere he needs to be. He's been part of 11 of the 12 kills, he's level 8, almost 9, and I think that's where Thunder Awaken probably are going to wait for this BKB, or I guess not even a BKB built up on Dark Mago. He kind of has a hodgepodge of items right now. He's, I think, just finished up the Sange, but then gave up on going for the Orchid, so it's a little bit weird from him. Not as concise as usually his item builds are, but that's also where Sacred, in playing versus the inherent silence of the Skyreth Mage and what will be the silence coming in from Gunnar, has had to go for the Yule Scepter. So no Lotus Orb, he's not really as tanky as some other Timber Saws, and that's also where the further these fights are from the towers, Sacred's not going to have those react farmer stacks. He's going to have to work for it. He's going to have to sit in the jungle, get beat up, and then come to the fight, which is exactly where four Zoomers, I think, really need to take those engagements. But this is looking up a little bit. A lot of your items are now kind of being built up in a very fast way. Ghost of Belial's not messing around at all. He's looking at the BKB. I think the only problem for four Zoomers is they are having this troll just farming, doing whatever he wants on the other side of the map. Are you going to be able to really strike before he gets whatever he wants? Because that's the game that Pikaz is farming for right now.
He's got himself an Orchid, though, so his offensive capability takes a pretty sizable step forward, and he is going to try and look for something. And not immediately going to run into anyone. And I think, yeah, with the ward, they do scout Gunnar out, so they know he's got the Orchid online now. They will probably show a little bit more respect to the Ember Spirit.
Yep, and, well, now, bottom tower. Are Thunder Awaken really this happy, though? If I'm being honest, four Zoomers are getting a lot of these early towers with the Ursa lineup, and a large part of it is just having the Tiny there with the tree grab, just having the increased damage, but it feels like maybe Thunder Awaken are giving up a few too many objectives. Certainly they're going to fight over that mid tower, but it really feels like Thunder Awaken are not looking to make any plays here, and it's a little bit disconcerting if you're a Thunder Awaken player. They're not really looking for any active plays right now. They're very split out on the map, and I feel like a large part of it does come back to Dark Mago not really being battle ready, where typically in his games, he's the first one to fight, but instead he's taking a much more slow style, and I think in doing so, you're giving a lot of time over to the four Zoomers.
Yeah, it's very rare to see Thunder Awaken be the squad sort of, I guess, not pushing the tempo in a lot of these games, right? They've always had that sort of aggression as their calling card in this event, and obviously we're not seeing that just yet. But we'll see what happens if they can hit these items. Dark Mago, I think, is still looking to finish off the Orchid as he is doubling back forward. If they can get that, if Pikaz can grab another item or two, then they are going to hit that timing. It's just going to be later than we're used to, and you do run the risk of your timing sort of maybe overlapping with four Zoomers as they're eyeing up Sacred here in the bottom lane. This is not an easy kill, but they're not even going to get the chance. Sacred TP's out. Moo didn't really care too much about chasing. He would rather just clear out the creep wave, get more control over the map, but now, is this the makings of a smoke play? We've got three heroes sort of chilling out. All three smokes are actually sitting, well, were sitting in Panda's inventory. They'll pass them over to Matthew, and now they'll make the move.
Well, here we go. What's going to happen next? This is the Orchid smoke up, so if they find Gunnar, and Gunnar is going for the same build he goes for in pretty much all of his games. He's actually just immediately going for the Blink Dagger after the Orchid, but if he does get caught by that silence, we could very possibly see him just immediately switch it up for the BKB, but that's where he still has to hit, though. Gunnar is in a very safe spot right now. He might leave after his Remnant expires, but it is actually expired. Gunnar is locked up top. They just need to find him, but that's also where four Zoomers, they're wrapping. They're looking for the fight, and Sacred.
Oh, get the silence down onto Gunnar, though. There's going to be the X-Torrent into the boat. The Static Storm comes through, but it's not in time. Gunnar taken down first. And four Zoomers, they realize we just got a little bit played there. We thought we were the ones setting the trap. Instead, they walk into the trap, and they're just going to back off before they sacrifice anything else. And now, if you didn't know about the Orchid on Dark Mago before, you sure as hell know now.
No, Gunnar is probably startled at that. Gunnar, or rather, Dark Mago was sitting in that tree line for such a long time, and then he just randomly gets Orchided after the Orchid Sacred. It's kind of funny to see, but that was also really well baited from Sacred. For a second there, he almost pulled it off. Four Zoomers were so ready to just kill him outright in that Orchid timing, but then, unfortunately, everything just immediately starts to shift. But that's also quite a few of your cooldowns down, and Aegis is going to expire in 10 seconds. Costabile does have the BKB to slot out, so that's going to feel quite nice, but that's also where Gunnar has to be very careful. He doesn't want to start spiraling right now. He still wants to play in much the exact same fashion he was up until this point, but that's where all it takes is getting caught by that Orchid one more time, and then suddenly you're going to have to take a huge step back and then look for this Yule Scepter. And again,
Yep. They've got the X. Can he
needs
dodge?
to dodge. So patient. He didn't even realize.
There's going to be the Yules into the Cookie Stun, into the Silence, into the Torrent, and they've got him. That is incredible from Thunder Awaken. As you said, they just sort of... They outweight Gunnar, trying to outweight them, and they will be able to find another kill. And now, yeah, that Ember Spirit's game starts looking a little bit more suspect now with back-to-back deaths.
Yeah, and even Dark Mago didn't think he got him there. He thought it was just going to be another dodge, and I think that's where, unfortunately for Gunnar, there just wasn't enough time in his Remnant. And, well, on the other side, Matthew will just get picked off, but the very awkward game is now going to spell out before us. Roche is going to respawn maybe in 2 minutes. The earlier timer, of course, always favors the Roshan team, but it's where there has been a lot of time now where Four Zoomers haven't been able to get back onto those buildings, in time that Pakaz has very quietly, in a very similar fashion to Kataro, has just been farming up on this Troll Warlord, and he is much farmed. He is still behind the Ursa. Ursa, of course, getting to farm a lot more of the map, having that lead and having that map control, but it does also mean that this BKB is going to be done pretty soon here, and then Pakaz might actually want to fight.
We see Dark Vago finished off the Heaven's Halberd now as well, so he's got the Orchid to try and deal with the Ember, he's got the Halberd to try and deal with the Ursa. They're going to try and smoke up here. Full 5-man, so Pakaz is presumably going to be involved, although never mind, I spoke too soon. He just happened to be in the area when the smoke happened. He's still just looking to finish that BKB. His teammates, though, will continue to press on. Problem is, they're not really going in a direction that's going to give them any opportunities. Four Zoomers are all on their own side of the map. Nobody's really hanging out down bot, so smoke's not going to hit. They could just try to push the lane if they want, because I don't think they have time to change direction. That smoke is going to be dissipating now.
And well, let's see. Feels like now the plays are going to slow down just a little bit, especially for Gunnar. He's about to finish off his Yule Scepter, so it's not the worst case scenario, but I guess prove me wrong. They're going to smoke up with Costabile's Blink. A very strong timing, especially if they can find their way onto Matthew yet again. He's really been out pretty far here, and he should go down relatively quickly, if not to the Ursa, just to the support, but that's where the fight is pretty possible. But, oh, he's got the X on himself, but he needs to get brought back. Oh, no.
Nope. To be able to survive it, big plays from Four Zoomers as they get... Honestly, the first kill onto Matthew is just kind of ho-hum. It's catching out Dark Mago there with that glimpse that really seals the deal for them. They get the Tombstone afterwards as well, and... Oh, Starblaze Blink doing quite a lot of good things for them, I believe. Yeah, Z-Freak just finished off his Atos as well, so they're getting more maneuverability, they're getting more lockdown. Gunnar finishes the Yules, so he's not going to be as easily caught by Dark Mago with that Orchid, so Four Zoomers really starting to hit a spike here. Unfortunately for them, the Roche timer doesn't quite cooperate. 2 minutes added to that respawn timer, but they're set up quite nicely now, and even slightly ahead of their opponents, 2k up.
Yeah, and well, they're still looking for plays across the map, and as much as that death on Dark Mago is definitely going to hurt, it's more his personal game than I really think changing the game state. You didn't lose the tier 2, it didn't really eat that much damage either. The name of the game is still going to be around this next Roshan, and we'll have to see. A minute 20 would be great for Four Zoomers. They want to keep this momentum going forward, but it's also where a bad timer could really kind of stop you up here. I think, well, the smoke, not really a smoke for any particular reason except for because finishing up his BKB, but this could be really bad for Thunder Awaken. If Pakaz is stuck after the fact, if he gets caught out by a glimpse or even isn't able to TP away, it's one of those heroes where if you're stuck in the battle trance, it is a one-way trip. And that's where we might see a smoke from Four Zoomers as well. They did get the cliff, though. If they do fight in this area, Kanabu's going to be the difficult hero to deal with. Pain doesn't land him either, but this is still very scary. I agree with Four Zoomers, though. Run down, hit this mid-tier 2, force your opponents away from the high ground. That's not the fight you take. This is a crazy break, though.
We're in onto the Kunkka. He doesn't have a BKB, so he's just dead. Didn't get the chance to do much of anything, and now the glimpse. Okay, it doesn't pull Matthew very far, and we're not going to be able to catch him out just yet. There is no buyback on the Kunkka, though, so if you're 4-Zoomers, this could be your moment. You've got to be a little bit worried about that Troll. He still has the BKB and the Battle Trance, as you said. Got to be careful on that Troll Warlord, but that is a two-way street, so 4-Zoomers aren't going to try to push too far forward, but now they've got Thunder Predator sort of trapped across the river.
This is very awkward. There's no BKB on Coach Debele, so he needs to be very cautious. Moo really needs to be the one to go in first with a BKB of his own, but it really is quite a fine line they're treading here. Gotta be very careful. Because needs to find the backline though, and Because is actually pretty far away from Sacred. He's gonna be fine, but found Husky in the meantime.
Okay. They'll get that kill. They lose Panda in exchange, though, and now Husky's going to buy back. Meanwhile, Sacred dropped low, but look at Matthew coming in with the kisses. Gustable is taking a lot of damage. Gunner's dropping low, too. The Static Storm is going to whiff entirely, and Sacred, he dies, though. He's not able to get the last bit of damage off, and I don't know if Because can catch up. 4-Zoomers get everyone out. And what a clutch buyback in there from Husky. He may not have hit much with the Static Storm, but it just creates an obstacle, I suppose, if nothing else. Sacred has to really not back off because he still ends up dying, but not able to get directly in to finish off either of those crucial kills. But Thunder Awaken have Dark Mago back in the fight now after he respawns. They're trying to take Roshan, but this is where things are going to get weird. They're going to jump in onto Gunner. They're keeping him stunned up. Can they finish him off in time? Not yet. Defensive Fuel's coming in. He's going to be able to get the jump out. Kaz is the one to die. Dark Mago's now going to die as well, and Thunder Awaken, they're just starting to get run over. These fights are terrible. Panda comes in for a kill onto Gunner finally on the back end, but by that point, they've already lost too much. They've surrendered control of the Roche Pit, and 4-Zoomers, they are standing so strong against everything Thunder Awaken are throwing at them.
Yeah, and, well, now what do? You don't win the fight beforehand. The 4-Zoomers cores survive on double-digit HP, and then you take the fight afterwards, but unfortunately for them, Coach Debele has his BKB for the second round. The only reason they get that close to killing the Ursa is because they go while they know it's down. And really, all of your agency in this game, if you're Thunder Awakened, is almost stripped of you because the fights going forward, they're only more difficult. And sure, Pandaboo's able to get Gunner after the fact, but it really feels like there's not enough hitting right now. We need to go back for some of these items. Sacred, I feel like, needs a BKB. Dark Mago surely needs his. The Static Storm, Husky's getting way too much done on this Disruptor. And I think it really comes back to Dark Mago, really the one at fault for slowing down his game's, really his entire team's game plan. And they look for a glimpse. Oh, Husky. You see how fast he's on that ward, trying to get the glimpse back on the Timber Saw? He's really just always looking for those plays. Unfortunately, it is placed under tower. A little bit awkward, but now that I guess they just got to kill the tower, right?
And Lou is trying to go to work on that, but taking a little bit of damage, and this is where things get weird. Thunder Awaken trying to get in position. Because, though, he wants to hold the BKB as long as he can, but that's too long. That is way too long. He is going to get picked off, and now with Because dead and no buyback available, there's nothing to be done. There's no fight here. There is no defense of this tower. Thunder Awaken just have to fall back, and I'll tell you what, ET, I mean, we talked about Thunder Awaken only losing to Hikori. Not even Hikori had put Thunder Awaken in this big of a just straight-up defensive position. Looks like 4-Zoomers, at least for this game, are starting to maybe crack the code a little bit.
No, this has been the most even game, I think, by far, especially in the early stages, because usually Thunder Awaken, like you said, they run away with the first 15 minutes, and then sometimes they throw it away, and sometimes they run it all the way, but that's also where I think 4-Zoomers, like you said, I don't know if they've completely cracked the code here, but they certainly have caught Thunder Awaken at a little bit of a dip in their skill. I think they've made a few, I want to say, pretty rudimentary mistakes, and in doing so, they've certainly given their opponents quite a great shot at taking a game off of them in this best of 5, and I think that's where Thunder Awaken, they're not out by any means. They're going to have to wait, and 4-Zoomers still have to work for their buildings. It really is just Moo who's able to push quickly. You're still running an Ursa lineup with an Ember Spirit mid, so the cores are not going to blitzkrieg through a lot of these obstacles in front of them, but it's also where you wonder, is the map going to be enough? Can 4-Zoomers taking away 90% of the area you play in going to result in a win, or if Thunder Awaken are able to turn it maybe after some key items? But Dark Mago,
he might get
they know where
baited
he's
here.
back. Yeah, he's got to run.
There's going to be the Atos into the Mystic, and yeah, Dark Mago, that's a little bit too greedy. He was in the tree line, he could have just TP'd home and would have been done with it. Instead, he wants that little bit of extra farm, and it is going to cost him. And at this point, I mean, he needs this BKB so damn badly. He is just getting punished heavily. 3 and 6 now for Dark Mago on that Kunkka, and down for another 50 seconds. So for Zoomers, well, this is where we come back to the problem, as you stated. They don't really have the means to just breach the high ground right now unless they're willing to go all in for a team fight up the ramp, which honestly that could backfire pretty dramatically. So they're going to try and poke and prod here, and oh, hold on, they get the toss back. Sacred's going to get caught. Do they have a static play? They do, but they're going to try to hold it for as long as they can, because Sacred is still pretty damn tanky with that barrier. And yeah, they're just going to have to back off. Moo will pop the BKB so that these kisses are not going to be a problem for him. Before Zoomers will simply reset. The problem is they're resetting into a scenario where your Kunkka is up in 10 seconds.
Yeah, and, well, Gunnar, he's looking again, and because he has an impossible decision, and of course, for the first time, Gunnar is just really running on his lonesome, and he does have a Remnant now, so he's not going to try for it, but the Sacred gets cut off in between. They meet up with the Everspirit, and now, because you have to be so careful here, you do not want to be forced to use your BKB, and he's going to get greedy, but the greed will pay off. Moo doesn't have Avalanche to block his TP. He would have had to get somehow in there with the toss, and then maybe things look hairy for him, but it's just constantly Thunder Awaken heroes forced back into the base, and you do wonder, hey, for Zoomers, you're going to lose your Aegis here in 29 seconds. I think they're going to feel pretty confident with their lead, though, and especially Costabile. I feel like this is the most farmed Ursa I've seen in a very long time. He's not skipping a beat. He is really getting everything he wants out of the map. About to have the Basher as well, so watch out, Sacred and Dark Mago. There is really no escape. Even after you get this BKB, you're still very killable for the Ursa.
This is part of the problem, right? You look at Dark Mago, that just sort of brief switch up with his build where he slows everything down. The BKB is not available until a point where the Ursa on the other side has farmed himself into a scenario where he may not have to worry about it at all. So that is normally not that big of a deal, but on this Kunkka in particular, he was the guy you were sort of looking at, because your other two cores still don't really feel entirely ready. Sacred, as we just saw, is not as tanky as he would like to be, and because, well, not super durable, and honestly not really able to do a whole lot of damage here unless he just gets free reign to go all in onto a single target, and we haven't really seen that happen yet.
No, we really haven't, unfortunately, and hopefully these teams are going to be back in just a second here. Of course, Costabile also playing on USC's, maybe a little bit of a connection struggle, but I think four Zoomers are just in a fantastic spot to take this one. Dark Mago's got to be so careful bottom. The issue is he still needs to come here. He still needs to keep pushing this lane out because he knows there's really no other way for him to find his farm. It's just where it feels like four Zoomers, they can afford to show one hero mid. They can afford to hunt in the bottom lane. They can afford for Gunnar to play top by himself and try and get the Trolls BKB for free. It's where I think Thunder Awaken, especially when they're support duo in their off lane, they don't have that key playmaker, and it's the biggest problem they have. And well, because there's your BKB usage. If four Zoomers want to go up now, that's their moment. They know that the Troll is going to be helpless, and they have their BKBs on their side.
Oh, big play from them. They do lose the Aegis, so they don't have that second life to work with anymore. But as you said, knowing that Bakaz will only be able to rely upon his ult rather than his BKB, and Kunkka just got caught. Dark Mago. Man, he needs their BKB, but he's still not able to get it. And at this point, this is feeling like a situation, ET, where Thunder Awaken, if they recover from this, it's going to take, what, maybe upwards of like 10, 15 more minutes that they're going to have to buy here, because Dark Mago's progress has just been completely shattered. Look at where his net worth stands right now. He's below every single core on the four Zoomer side, so if you're Thunder Awaken, you have to bank on your ability to hold your high ground right now, because you will need quite a bit of time.
And certainly they can hold their high ground. They've got the halberds, they have the Yule scepters, but oh, the toss.
There's the Yules. Can that buy him enough time? Just needs to be able to Timber Chain back home, but he's going to get rooted up. Still very tanky here, and Sacred at this point, he's actually going to look for the kill instead of falling back. The problem is, Well, he did that. Because kind of had a similar mindset. Pushes out of the base, gets punished up by Z-Freak and Costabile, and now both heroes are dead. Only one of them has buyback, and they're looking for even more. Move, linking in, getting the toss back onto Panda. They are going to be able to take the Undying down pretty quickly. Matthew now the only one alive in his own base, and, well, at a certain point, we talked about four Zoomers not having the greatest of lineups to get through onto those objectives, but if you could just wipe everyone out, there's no one here to contest them, and they're going to get another toss-back play. The Kunkka.
Oh, no. Yeah, they call it. That's over. That's GG. I mean, yeah, crickets.
Boy, Dark Mago sure did need his BKB. I don't know, man. Sounding like a broken record, but that really does doom them. Without that BKB, your Kunkka turns into just a straight non-factor, and for Zoomers, they're not going to pass up that opportunity. They just run it down their opponent's throats, and you see the results. That is a big win for them.
Yeah, and really in the same vein as I want to say Gunnar got punished in the top area where he's not respecting playing versus the Orchid. He's still trying to play versus supports that he know are weak versus the Ember Spirit, but I still feel like Dark Mago's build is a little bit unacceptable here. It's not his Armlet Rush that we're used to seeing. It's not his BKB first that we're also very used to seeing. He gives up on the Orchid halfway through, and I think because of this very odd itemization, Force Zoomers kind of get to walk all over him. He really felt like he fell off hard. As soon as I think the top lane goes a little bit sour for him and Sacred, we really just saw an immediate lack of agency coming in from Thunder Awaken. At the same time, Force Zoomers are constantly pushing him. Their cores really aren't dying. Gunnar dodged, I want to say, like, what, 10 times in this game with Sleight of Fist. He just was unstoppable, and he never even had to go back for that BKB. I want to say he just played a really flawless game of Ember Spirit, and it's exactly what you need from him in a series like this. The games are just going to continue to get harder. At the same time, they tried to make space, but when your space maker isn't really doing very much except for getting picked off and looking for his next item, they just had 0 item timings on Thunder Awaken. I think that's the big problem here. And to accentuate that problem, Matthew is not really coming up as a playmaker. Pandaboo doesn't have much to provide either. He's just a tombstone. I feel like this lineup really had a lot of flaws, and four Zoomers were the exact opposite. They really covered their bases.
Yeah, and unfortunately, we talked about that in the draft with that Troll Warlord pick. We mentioned there were going to be some vulnerabilities that would be exposed. It ends up being the Kunkka who sort of has a problem, but who knows? Maybe if Bakaz is on a different hero, you have someone who can contribute a little bit earlier. Your Kunkka doesn't sort of walk into that trap. I don't know. At this point, hypotheticals don't really do you a whole lot of good. Thunder Awaken leave an opening, and four Zoomers able to more than take advantage of it and tie up the series.
Yeah, I think now, game 3, who gets first pick is going to be the name of the question. What team prioritizes it? We've seen the Tiny twice now. When will the Tiny get banned out? When will heroes start to get through? Will we see the Chen? Will we see the Deny pick? This is where the mind games start. Halfway through a series, this is where everything starts to change in those drafts.
Well, yeah, first 2 games of our best of 5 end up being an even exchange. So somebody now has an opportunity to swing some more momentum their way, take that commanding 2-1 lead, and put themselves one step away from claiming victory here. The question is, will it be four Zoomers with a back-to-back, or will Thunder Awaken be able to adjust and get themselves back in the driver's seat here? We'll be finding out in really just about 5 minutes. So ET and I will step away for a moment. We'll be back, though, with the start of the Game 3 draft.